Welcome to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. My name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Our objective is to enthuse, inspire, energize, and empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes here in BW and beyond. We do so by inviting these entrepreneurs into our makeshift studio. Sometimes we call them to the restaurant, sometimes we go to our studio, and we ask them to share their experiential knowledge, their experiences and their expertise. And we ask them as many questions as we can, aimed at empowering you also as a viewer. Hello and welcome, dear viewer, to another exciting episode of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. It's always a privilege, really. It's an honor. I keep saying this, but I really mean it from the bottom of my heart, that you could take time out of your busy schedule to listen to a video and to learn something. And I keep trying to bring the cream of the crop in terms of top CEOs, captains of industry, and individuals who are making an impact and out there in the marketplace. And certainly my guest is one of those individuals. Before he introduces himself, let me just ask a special favor for you to just hit that subscribe button so that we can cope with the algorithms and get somewhere with this show. We want to reach 10,000 very shortly and beyond, and we can only do so with your help. So hit that subscribe button. Welcome to the show, Mr. Rapinyana.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I'm really excited about today's conversation.
Yes. So am I. Tell them your full name and share a little bit about your, CV, compressed CV, if you like.
My name is Kabelo Rapinyana. I'm from Sorowe. I was born here in Gaborone. I went to school in Francistown, and I had the privilege to go to school in South Africa for my high school. And I came back here for my university. After university, I had the privilege to get interested into the creative space. I did a couple of shows and work with my tisong, and from there it's just been that.
You never looked back.
I've worked on the My Tisong Festival, I think from 2012 till about 2018. I've been doing that festival religiously every year. I've done shows as a president's concert. I had the privilege back in 2014 to work on the Youth Games, the opening and closing ceremony. I've had the privilege to work on the Bots 50. I think that was one of the biggest shows to ever grace us here in Botswana. I've also worked on the Netball World Cup as a co-producer and co-director for opening and closing ceremony, and also the Intergames entertainment area. I've also worked on I was producer and still producer for the Yarona FM Music Awards, which I think is one of those gems of Botswana that we should keep on supporting and watching. I also work with talented creatives. I manage Samantha Mohwe, manage Khao Nadine, manage Leboa. These are artists and creatives in their own right. And then I've learned a lot from them, as much as I think they've learned from me. I'm a partner at a company called Amble Promotions. Amble Promotions. Yes, this is a production hub.
Amble Side.
Yeah, Amble Promotions. Amble Side is the bigger company.
Oh, I see.
Yes, and there's Amble Promotions, which is a wing that specifically deals with, I think, what we're going to be talking about today. Yes, which is the creative hub that focuses on quality productions, research in the creative space, producing impactful programs, behavioral change programs, and also creativity for impact's sake. I think that's what I'll call what we do.
Okay.
Yes.
What sort of academic training or vocational training does one need to get to where you are? And in your case, what did you go through?
Yes. It's very different. Sometimes one would go via a way of you're doing your normal high school and stuff. And from there going to university and studying any forms of media. Remember, creativity is such a long spectrum of things. You have your literature media, you have your videography, you have your acting, you have your script writing. So it depends on what area you want to go to. So for someone like me, it's more on the side of project management and producing. Yeah. So I mean that's where I'm at, more on the background element of the work.
Okay.
Yes.
What would you say is the key skill set that one needs to survive in this industry?
First of all, you need to have the heart for it. I think without the heart, you will not survive in this industry. It's long hours, tough decisions, pressure. Think about it this way. You take 6 months to create something that's only going to be watched for an hour. Yeah, so imagine that. So anything that you miss, it will never happen again, because it's live. It's live shows most of the time that we do. So it's really high pressure work, and it needs you to also be organized. You need to have great communication skills.
Okay.
And you also need to understand show business and every element of the show, from beginning all the way to the person watching it at the house. Yes.
I guess then I should ask you about Amble Productions itself, if you can just share what it is and maybe its relationship to Amble Side.
Yes. So Amble Side is a parent company that has various elements in it.
Does Amble mean something?
Amble, well, it doesn't really have a particular meaning. I think we just liked the term that side.
Okay.
So Amble is a parent company. Amble Side is a parent company which has construction, various sub businesses in it. Yes. And then Amble Promotions is our key component, which is the creative hub that we have formed together with my partner Kabelo Rapinyana. Yeah, we met when he was director at Mike Disong and I was producing shows, and then we just clicked, and it didn't make sense that we work together to produce the shows. I think he was still, when we first started contact, he was still in Joburg, and I think I was doing my first year when I did my first production, which, by the way, I think was the first time I was bankrupt in my life.
First year at UB.
Yeah.
You're bankrupt because your allowance was going into this.
Into the production, and I mean, it didn't make the financial contribution, but I think in terms of skills, in terms of passion, in terms of stamping my stamp onto the industry, that it did very well. Yes.
Any specific projects that come to mind which you have done?
As I was mentioning when I was introducing myself.
Yeah, you mentioned. Let's talk about the Africa Youth Games.
Yes.
What about them that sticks out? What did it take to come up with the Africa Youth Games?
At the time, I was actually subcontracted, I think, via Dialogue, if I remember correctly, yes, to do stage management and costumes. That was a huge possibility. As you can imagine, there were over 600 performers, I think, over 1,000 costumes, over maybe 2,000 cues of the show. So what stuck for me was that it was the first time I actually looked at my country and I looked at my people and I was like, we can do this. Yeah, I think it was one of the first international steps that we've ever done at the time, and it was just amazing. Yeah.
Anything memorable from it? Anything that sticks out
from that time?
Yeah.
I think for me it was how Botswana came together to produce this thing. I mean, usually most of the times when you're looking for sets and stuff, you need to go next door. And at that time, I think was our ability to just create something ourselves and just present it. I think for me that will always be such a powerful image in my mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what gave you the idea that you can do this? I could go back to the formative stage. What really triggered the idea that this is what I can do and I want to do?
It's actually an interesting story. When I was still in high school, we used to have a theater. We used to do plays and stuff. So as boarding students, if you're in the play, you're allowed to go to the theater and work I had not to do the schoolwork, the prep, the study time. So that's how it started. It was just like just an escape to do something else. But then as I worked more and more in the space, I started falling in love with the creative industries, with creatives, because the thing about creative work, it also has a sense of healing, a sense of connection. So I started just finding other ways of how to improve things, how to tell stories, and that just became a love that I've just carried until now. Yes.
You mentioned Mike Tisong a few times. How did you start with them? Did you just walk in and say, I want to be part of this?
Starting is always a difficult venture. If anything you want to start, it's very difficult to that. So going to Mike Tisong was, I think it was Ross's time, as she was the director of ITISO. I think it was my African dream that was happening. I remember walking in and just saying, look, I've done stage management, this is what I've done, I'd like to work. And I remember everyone just looking at it like, how old are you? I think I was like 19 or 18 at the time. Yeah, and it came a thing, okay, no, look, drop your stuff, we'll call you back. After a week, and I realized, no, I'm not getting that call. It's been too long. I went back again. I think I went back like 3 or 4 times before they were like, okay, look, you're always here. You might as well do something. Yeah. And every single job I did at that time, I think the first job I did was just packing drinks for the cast. Yeah. And I would just make sure everything I did great. I did at the best of my abilities until a point where I was like, okay, I think there was someone who was not in, and they were saying, can you stand in? I think it was during my African dream. Can you stand in for them? And that was it.
Isn't that an example of how hunger and persistence can pay off?
Yes, definitely, yeah. It is. And I think in this kind of space where it's more about what you see than what you have on paper, it's very important that you always show up, you always at your best at all the time, because at the end of the day, it's about what we see, right? Yeah, like even today, right now, the podcast is about what we see. Yeah, not more about the back end work you've been doing to get here. Yeah. Yes.
People will get the end result.
Yes.
Yeah. And what is Amble Promotions working on currently?
Yeah. So right now we're trying to push our own productions. We're working on a very interesting TV series that I think by the time it'll come out, it'll just change the landscape of Botswana, and more about the story than the actual footage. More about the story. We are trying to now produce content that is richly Botswana, and not only Botswana in Gaborone, but Botswana across the country. We've had the privilege of working across Botswana in the different projects we've done, and we really want to take this and put it into a production that really speaks to us, that speaks to the normal Botswana, whether of all classes, whether rich, poor, middle class, whether in Gaborone or in Maung or in Shakawe. We want to do a production that really speaks to who we are as Botswana and what has gotten us here. So that's what we really want to do.
Okay. Yeah. And logistically, what does it take to come up with that?
I can say it's been a tough, I think this will be the 3rd year. Still working on the production and still pushing, trying to get everything done. Because first of all, the story needs to be right? So I think we spent the most part of the first year doing research, because the one thing that we don't sometimes realize about the creative industry is that it's not just me waking up, having an idea and just putting up on screen. Research is an important element. So if we are going to reflect people's cultures, people's traditions, you really need to understand that first. So the first year has been doing research, understanding the different cultural elements we're trying to communicate, and see exactly how best to communicate them without disrespecting the people, but also giving a clear picture of what's happening.
But what is the production about ultimately? I mean, surely you have some kind of blueprint.
Yes, it's there. I think that one I'd have to leave.
Yeah.
Because it's still in a work in progress. So
and
I think
IP, sensitive IP.
Yes. So I think that one I can just discuss just generally what it is about. Yes. So I'm just going back to that. After you do your research and after you plan, you do your scripts, you get your team together. then obviously the big part comes of fundraising for this. So I think that's where we are at right now. Trying to fundraise for the project, but we're hopefully getting somewhere, and maybe we'll be shooting very soon, and maybe you could come and just see how it's not going to happen here in Gaborone. It's going to be somewhere in those actual villages. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what kind of support or collaboration do you need right now? Somebody might be out there watching.
Yeah. You see, I think a lot of times in Botswana, what we mistaken the creative industries for, and I keep using the word industries, is that we feel it's more of a charity-based work rather than business.
I don't know where that comes from.
Yeah, it's most of the time it's more, if you look at people contributing to creative space, will do it more as a grant or as a giveaway or as a what. But I think what we need here is business investors who are looking to invest into businesses that work within the creative space, and also who can also guide these businesses so that even if long after their investment, those businesses are still sustainable and they can also benefit from them. So I think what we need more than anything is business people who are ready to take a risk within the creative industry, as the way you can take a risk with a building or a house or a shop.
You're looking for investors.
We're looking for investors, plain and simple business investors.
What would be a pitch to an investor?
Yeah.
Demonstrate to the investor that this thing is worthwhile and is potentially lucrative. Can you explain that to an investor?
Yeah. So
here's a chance to make a pitch.
Yes. So first of all, if you look at it, if you look at the creative industries in their whole, and look at the things they cover across, we use them every single day, right? And then you look at the contributions to the GDP, and especially here in Botswana, just the copyright industries contributed, I think it was 5.4% to the GDP of Botswana. This was, I think, the report was in 2019. And if you look at that as compared to mining, which was, I think, less than 3%, agriculture, which was about less than 3% in terms of contribution, you can see that already there's an awakening in the space of this thing that just needs the right startup. So you're looking at copyrightable things, copyright stuff. So you're looking at your TV production, you're looking at your books, you're looking at literature, you're looking at software, design software, you're looking at designs, you're looking at the advertising, you're looking at printing. So all these copyrightable stuff are
constitutes how much? What percentage?
I think it's about, I'll just confirm, but I think it's about 5.47%
of the GDP.
To the GDP, yes. And that's massive if you think about it. Yes, I think the report is available on the SIPA website. So I think I encourage people also, and this is also another thing we need to look at. We need to encourage other people to come into the space, the creative space. Because I think what's been happening a lot is that we only look at the performers, we only look at the musicians, we only look at the people on screen. We forget about, we need your accountants, you need your lawyers, you need your, and I think a call I'd make from this space is that we need those people to also come into this industry as a way to diversify this economy of ours that we all survive on.
Yeah.
Yes.
And running a business in Botswana, perhaps you could use as an example your situation.
Yeah.
How was it, and can you just take us through the journey?
I think Botswana it's a different beast altogether. Botswana is a different beast altogether. Running a business in Botswana is difficult. It's difficult because we have yes, policies that govern how we run businesses, but I think implementation is where we're missing a lot.
I'll challenge you just to look at the CEDA situation. CEDA has people who are technocrats. Some of them have never seen the business in their lives. They've never worked in any business setting. And yet they are the people who decide whether a project is viable and evaluate it, and tell you what to submit and what not to submit. Isn't that the reason why you said it's a different beast?
Yes, I think that's the biggest reason, right? because we are in a situation where, for example, right now you want to do a podcast, and you've already been running, and someone is gonna tell you that no, show us your, for example, financials for this thing, and you're like,
gonna get them.
Yeah, but it's I think it's a lack of understanding of the people who really want to support. I think organizations like CEDA do really want to support businesses, but they don't know how. And I think this is where
they're using an old model for supporting.
And also this is where we as business people maybe need to step in, because have we asked to be on those panels? Have we considered going onto those panels or offering us services?
Normally it's the minister who appoints you, so I don't know whether we can just walk in and say, I want to be part of the board.
But also, sir, even this or like that, have we actually tried, us as business people?
Before we say it can be done, have we tried it?
Yes, because I mean, sometimes it's important that we are there as business people to say, look, even though this is farming, I've done real estate, or I've done creative space, I understand business. When this person says that they need cash flow, I understand what they mean, Because, I mean, I think, like you're saying, some of the people who are in charge with doing this are maybe not the right people to do it.
Yeah, but let's talk about your experience. What's your specific experience?
My specific experience is that before we even talk about the money, or we talk about the money that we need in our companies, we need to talk about the policies that govern us in order to do business. Because I think what's very important, more than investment, is the ground conducive enough for you to do business? Yeah, because sometimes you might get your 100 million or however much you need to run your business, but then you come into an environment that is not ready for you to do business. So I think what's very important, what I've seen in my personal experience, is that policy needs to be the keystone of us doing business, and needs to be reviewed consistently. Like, it needs to be reviewed every single time as things move. Because sometimes you look at the policies that govern our businesses are done at the time when there was no internet. Simple things of saying you need to submit hard copies in 2023.
It makes no sense.
Yeah, you need to print 4 copies, and that's gonna cost you 2,000 pula at BMS. Whereas you could have sent an email. No, that's what I'm saying. Policy sometimes is what we need to start off with, and then when we move into financing, I think also we need to be clear about what we are financing and how it can be sustainable. Because sometimes I think we like throwing money at issues and hoping that things will get right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what challenges? I mean, I'm keep narrowing it down to Amble. What challenges specifically did you encounter?
Our challenges, first of all, I think when we started off, it was we had a great idea of how our business would run. And this is always an internal joke that we have at the office. We used to do a lot of tenders, and then one day we just looked back at how much we spent on tenders and how much we actually got back, and then we stopped because we realized that we were not working right.
Because you're bringing professionals to help you do these tenders, and sometimes you pay people to put things together.
Yes, and also we were not working right. We were not working to improve the business. We were focusing on just doing tender after tender and tender.
Yeah.
And once we got that model right, and decided, okay, let's work on the business. And then if these things will come as and when. We realized that we grew our market share, we grew our clientele, we grew our visibility, because we are now waking up every day to work on the business. I mean, the challenges we had obviously was because of how the model is in Botswana. There's a simple thing of there was a lot of undercutting that we do, especially in the creative space, whereby you're providing this certain service, but then you're forced to drop your prices because you're looking at the market and everyone is underpricing, and and I think that's a big challenge that is still around. But I think we managed to overcome that by showing off our quality services to the clients. Now when the client calls, they know that they will get only the best from us. Yeah.
And give us a time frame, and then tell us how you maneuvered around COVID.
COVID, yeah. Interesting enough with us, COVID came, especially when it hit in Botswana, came at a time where we had a couple of contracts already signed. So we managed to survive the first year of COVID properly. But what we did was, immediately we heard of the lockdowns, we immediately started scaling down. We immediately reduced our office spaces. We immediately started moving towards a work to home process.
You had Commerce Park before?
We had Molapo Crossing before.
So you left Molapo Crossing
we even didn't even get the office at that time. We started moving to a home based work, because I think we already predicted that it's going to be a tough year. So because we're also, and another thing, like I say, we do research. We're also looking at other countries and what's happening. So I think what helped us is that we shrinked immediately. We didn't wait to hear what is happening. We reduced our capacity. We started working on only the projects that we have.
Doesn't Labour say you couldn't retrench? Didn't the government issue a directive that you couldn't retrench?
Yes. No, we didn't retrench anyone.
How did you then reduce?
That's what I'm saying. We closed down our offices. We moved our spending on transport. We moved towards internet-based working. We started having everyone working from home, and we only focused on. We didn't take any more new pitches. We started focusing on the contracts we had and fulfilling them. So in that way, we had already seen that the writing was on the wall. That it was on the wall. Tough year. I think COVID hit us more actually the after effect more than during the thing. I think about shrinking down is also that you need to come back up. So I think also then getting back up there. But yeah, I think we survived. And one thing about Amble is that we have constant meetings, and we always look for innovative ways to do something. Anything that we do, we always look for innovative ways to address our client needs and also address our own business needs. Yes.
Let's talk for a moment about the process of doing a big project. We've spoken about Africa Games. What's the other one?
Bots 50 Netball World Cup.
Yeah, Bots 50, because every Botswana can relate to that. Tell us your involvement from start to finish. Okay. Obviously, have to shrink it. What did you do? Next step, and then what became of it?
Yes. So when Bots 50 happened, I think Red Pepper was the overall consultant.
Which one?
Red Pepper was the overall consultant on it, and then we were hired in to work on the project. So basically, it's a whole. That's from, first of all, you need to know what you're doing. That's the conceptualizing. You need to conceptualize what you're doing.
What's there to conceptualize?
No.
How many people are coming on the stadium on the day where the president will be sitting giving a speech?
Actually, that is also part of it. But also, when you need to conceptualize, what story are you telling? What do you want people to leave when they leave the stadium? Are people leaving happy? Are they living sad? Are they being patriotic? Are they feeling a sense of nationalism? Are they feeling bond? What do you want to give people when they leave? And that then translates into a story that you tell.
You write it out?
Yes. First, you research it. Is it what really happened in these 50 years of Botswana? Then you look at them. You pick up maybe the key points,
the key highlights.
And you see then how do you link them together. Then from there, that's when you can start writing about the different elements, and then from there it needs to be how is it going to look.
That's what you did. That was your job.
I was producing, so producing is more of overall look of the show, look and feel of the show. So other people, there were writers, there were researchers, so it's a whole value chain of people.
I just went on the stadium on that day and I saw people going around. What was the big deal there? What did you say? Just remind me. Things that I may have not paid too much attention to.
So it was a story about Botswana, where we come from. And I think at the end it was more about where we're going. So it was our celebrating our wildlife, celebrating our past leaders, celebrating our different cultures and our different tribes.
So what's the footprint that Amber left there? Amble Promotions left there. If you can think of one or two things.
We did the scripting. We did the scripting of the most of the the work there. We did production management, stage management. So what you do is there's calling of a show and there's managing a show on the floor. Yeah, we did most of that with other, obviously because of the big production, with other production houses that are also hired to work on the thing. And that's the thing about the creative arts. You see, you can have a production like that. I think there were over maybe 10, 12 production companies working on that project. And that's the beauty of the production of the...
As a producer, you have to coordinate
all of that with the other people. And that's the beauty of the creative space, that it can hire so many people at once. You know.
And it took about a year to prepare for that.
You know, that's what I'm saying. You work for a year for something that's
must have been a massive budget.
Yeah, something that's also that thing. So I mean, because at the end of the day, these are the projects we look forward to because they bring food to the table for most creators. Yes.
All right. There's an organization called the National Arts Council. What is it? And what aspirations can we expect from it? First, help the viewer understand its role.
So, National Arts Council works like this. It's supposed to be an arm that helps to cultivate and develop the arts sector in an economy. So it's supposed to be divorced from government, but work with government as an independent body that oversees the development of the arts in general. So your events, your prize, your award ceremonies, your national events, for example, should be handled by the Arts Council. Basically, they are an implementing body for the policies driven by government. So they're an implementing body. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it manned by people from the private sector?
Yeah. It should be manned by people from the private sector and maybe a few people from government, but mainly private sector. Yeah.
And what's happening on the ground with the council? Is it realistic? What's going on?
It's interesting. I mean, I think they just appointed a CEO recently, but I mean, we're yet to see. I mean, I think we need to.
Is it a creature of statute? It's an act of parliament to get
yes,
into.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So we need to also understand the strategy for the next year or so. I mean, I think we have just understood that they're appointing people and then the board is appointed, but we really need to hear how they're going to act as the Botswana L1.
Yeah.
And how they're going to act directly with the creative on the space.
Okay.
Creative, how am I going to interact with the Arts Council?
Yeah.
And we need to know the integrities of how they're actually gonna work. So I think until we know that, it's really up in the air. But
the previous head of state for the country was very big on Budirahati, and we used to see around President's Day all sorts of activities. How has that impacted the industry, and what is the current situation now?
I think those were initially good programs that were to just spark the creative industry and put a much needed cash injection to the artist. But like I was saying earlier on, we need to revisit our policies and our initiatives to see that are they keeping up with the times. Yeah, because I think one thing about that program is that in my opinion, it hasn't grown from what it was initially supposed to do. And I think it's a great program that just needs fresh ideas, fresh minds.
For instance, you're in charge of it, what growth would you inject in there? What new aspects would you bring?
I think the first of all is to find out a way to capitalize on the thing, to make money, so it becomes a capital venture. Because unfortunately, I feel
not handouts,
not a handout situation. Because I feel like there are gaps of potential possibilities in the program.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of all the way from TV to traveling shows to music productions to events so there are so many other avenues that could be used to also develop money for the fund itself and for the artists who are working, and also find ways to also make sure it's a sustainable longer project. Because I mean, sometimes it's unfortunate that some of the groups that participate in this, they just wait for this the whole year. So it's, so there's no real progression in the arts. But also, I think for me, this is the one thing I would clean up and export. Yeah, I think it's such a beautiful concept that
How would you export it, for instance?
Like I say, there's the TV route, there's traveling shows, and then there's also creating smaller shows that can be exported to other countries. Because I think, and also inviting the international community to pay to come and watch this whole month of creative work. I mean, people take vacations for extended period of times to go to the jazz concert in Cape Town, to go and watch Kawa. But also, you look at Hollywood and stuff, people go there for extended runs of shows. So I'm saying, if I had the opportunity, this is one thing I would clean up, and I would ensure that it just becomes a standard thing, whereby every year from this day to this day, we're here in Botswana, we're here to watch Botswana culture, Botswana art. We're here to learn about Botswana arts, because also there's another element that maybe needs to be added there. Teaching people about our arts, our culture, our traditions, yeah.
What is it? Yeah, I mean, is it rudderless at the moment? There's no leadership which is clear, which can be approached for these ideas.
I wouldn't say there's no leadership.
Yeah.
I think the way I would put it is, sometimes I think the people there do the same thing every year without maybe the consciousness of thinking, how do we change the status quo?
Yeah.
How do we improve? Because again, a big problem is the grant system of saying every year you will get money regardless of if it was successful or not. So there's no measuring.
It should be performance based and results based.
Yes, because for example, if I'm giving you 10 million every year without fail, I don't think that business would even grow from that.
No,
from
no.
10 million.
Yeah, you just sit there and chow that money without much effort. What must creatives do to ensure sustainability, and what has Amble done to ensure that?
For us, I mean, we have first of all, we have ventured for more than just providing on-stage content or on-screen content. Like I said earlier on, we focus a lot on research. We focus a lot on doing creativity for impact's sake, your behavioral change exercises, your industrial theater, teaching people on certain issues and stuff, and also finding creative ways to get important messages out to people. So, and also another thing is moving. We are on a process now of moving internationally and producing and working with other companies internationally. So I think that's how we are trying to keep Amble Promotions relevant, Amble Promotions alive, and also, but at the core of it, do great work for your clients. But for a creative who's there, for me, I think you need to constantly be researching, constantly be training yourself, constantly mixing with other artists in the space, finding out what's new on the market, and collaboration. I think for me, that's the biggest thing that sometimes I feel is missing. Because once you collaborate, you get to learn more, you get to open your horizon, you get to speak to other people, and you get to learn and possibly make other connections that can grow your business. Yeah.
There are the creatives who have reached out and succeeded there. Are you able to name names and tell us who your heroes are, who have really made it in this industry?
I mean, locally.
Locally, yes.
I mean, first of all, my business partner is such a great blessing to the industry. Mr. Khaole Menyane.
Mr.
Khaole Menyane. He's done amazing work for the industry, both in policy and also on the ground.
What's he done?
He used to be the director at MySec for policy and especially specialist at MySec. He's been director at MyTiso. Yeah, he's also produced numerous plays that have actually made an impact here. He's done Born Around Here,
Born
Around Here, which is a show that speaks about the conflict. How Botswana felt the conflict that happened in South Africa and
during
intermixing,
apartheid.
Yes, during apartheid time. Tells a very unique story that has not been told. He was also part of the funding of the Madimajana project. Which
that one was very successful, isn't it?
Yes, he was. He was leading that, and that was, I think,
what became of it?
I think as as time moves, other things have to come into place. I mean, it wasn't. It didn't.
Because for me, it could carry on and on and on.
Yes, I think it just needed also the right injection to move on. But I mean, I think it also gave way for other programs. I think after that, other people came up with other things that can develop the financial space, because I think it really was a really unique product that spoke about money, but in a very creative way. You see,
I think so.
Yeah.
That's why I said it should not have ended.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, also we've got Mr. Tondarai Tsara also, who's done.
Yeah, I've
amazing
been asking him to come on the
Yeah.
Nuggets for some time. He never says no, but I'm yet to see him. So maybe he'll watch this and say, "Hey, I should fulfill my promise."
I mean, he's done amazing work, both as an individual and also as an entrepreneur, and also his company doing some amazing
Are there
projects.
any highlights you want to share?
I think for me, he was also, this company was handling the youth games that we did.
Yes.
I've done a couple of projects with him. There's the Sky Girls thing that his company is also working on.
What is that?
It's an initiative for girls. That does. We've done some radio dramas, some productions for them. And it's a beautiful project that helps people. And I think you can see his work all around the city. Mr. Benz also.
He had some wonderful ideas about transportation in the city, and he actually had some ideas, blueprints, and what happened to that?
I think he will come in and answer and explain that.
Because I think he may have hit a brick wall.
I think that he'll explain that. But I mean, that's creativity. I mean, you have to sit down.
He's not an engineer. Yeah. I mean, I had a couple of his presentations. He says, I'm not an engineer. I'm not trained for this, but this is what I think can work.
Yes.
And he came up with something that could work if only there was political will.
Yes. And you see, that's what creativity does. I mean, you sit down, you look at a problem, and you find a creative way to solve it. Yeah, and that's an amazing project.
Yeah, because he gave examples of what they did in Ethiopia, and he studied how we can do it cost effectively here, and how we can change the whole thing within a short space of time.
Yeah. And also there's other people like Mr. Sam Stumo.
What has he done?
He's a consultant, a behavioral change consultant, who we've grouped into most of our projects to, like I say, we need creative impact,
What is his role in your project?
So
can you give an example?
He's our monitoring and evaluation expert. So one thing we promise our clients is that we're going to give you measurable results. So to tell you, okay, if we do this for you, this is what it means and this is how it's going to look like. Whether it's failed or not, you'll have a clear picture of what went wrong and what impact you had.
Okay, so in terms of internationally, how do we compare? How do we measure up?
I think in terms of talent, we are up there. We have the talent. We have the people. We have the will. What we're not getting is the financial element of this whole creative space. And most of the time, it's given to our economy and the number of people we have in Botswana.
And the size,
population size. But I mean, my argument is that nowadays there are no borders because of what's happening in terms of internet.
That story if there were no other economies with small numbers which have done much better than us.
Yes.
Dubai is very, very small in terms of numbers, but look what they've done.
Yeah.
So many other places.
Yeah. So I mean, we are lacking in terms of exposing our creatives to the international market, and how we do that. I mean, I think one country that does that well is SA. They do that really, really well, exporting their talents to other markets. Yeah, so I think we just need to come up with ways to do that. And simple things are actually investing in our artists to go and perform and interact in these economies. And I keep on saying investing rather than sponsoring, because if you invest, you will make sure that it does work, and you make sure you're taking the right product to those places.
Speaking of investment, we have an investment arm called Business Botswana, which used to be Bokim. How does the creative sector fit in, and what interactions have you had with Business Botswana?
Okay. So I chair the ACA, Association of Communication Agencies, and also am vice chair under Donrai at Business Botswana. Yes. So Business Botswana basically is the lobbying arm for the industry. So this is the whole creative sector. So essentially, what you're supposed to do is lobby for changes or things that we want in the creative industry to government. So it is that connection between the private sector and government. So that kind of bridge, and also from government also to the private sector, of changes and policies that they would want to implement. I think that's also an arm that we also need to invest in more, and also advocate for more, because it really, really helps to structure the industry. Because, I mean, a lot of things that we have been talking about just in the corridors in the creative space is that you look at your legal professionals, you look at your architectures, you look at your construction, your IT. You don't just walk into those industries and just start operating willy-nilly without any boundaries that govern the way you do stuff. So I think we also want to move that way in the creative space, so that also we protect the integrity of the industry and of the sector, because that's an important thing. Ethics very important. So I think Business Botswana is more there to do that, but also to cultivate businesses for its members. To advocate on international platforms, and also give its members the right tools to succeed in business. Yes.
All right. No, that's very interesting. And is there any tangible results we can talk about, or is it still working on?
I mean, we're still working. It's a very difficult process to say, because I mean it's a voluntary.
It's voluntary.
Yes. So, and as much as we are pushing, voluntary stuff take a bit slower than when you have a secretariat running.
Yeah. Most investors, and speaking as an investor myself, will want to put in their money and get a return. Just demonstrate what return is there for an average investor, for instance, and what is the turnaround period. People will ask you, the first thing we ask at Angel Network Botswana, for instance, is, do you have any traction? Is there any proof of concept? What are the numbers? So with those tough questions, can you help us see the actual return, the benefit to the investor?
So I'll give, without necessarily mentioning names because of all the copyright stuff, I'll give you a practical example. We once took a normal event that was just a normal event that happened yearly. And what we did is that from there, it needed to grow, and it needed investment. So then what we did is that we then moved this event into a television program that now creates television rights, that now creates television celebrity adverts and stuff. And from there, after the show was done, we were able to sell it to a broadcaster. We were able to sell advertising space. We were able to sell product placement in the place. And so it grew this thing from, I think, more than 3 times what it was at the beginning. So, and that took about a year to do. Yes. Yeah. But imagine this, with every investment, the bigger it is, the longer it is. So if we're doing about something bigger, it's 2 years. But already with our TV capability and our broadcasting capability already there. That's a huge market that's not being exploited.
Just I wonder why you're not prepared to mention the name, because if it's public, it's public.
So it was the Yadma FM Music Awards. Yes.
And those are annual, isn't it?
Yes.
And in that there are regular investors on board.
Yes.
So
for me, that's a project that really speaks to what the creative industry, especially in music in Botswana, is, and also supporting the young people. I mean,
look at how attitudes have changed towards music. I mean, we get almost exclusively local content now. Because of shifts associated with that.
And also now young people are coming into the industry and are coming even more serious, more focused. Guys are getting proper studios, proper cameras. Now it's a business. Guys are surviving off this.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the role of government beyond that, in the general scheme of things?
The role of government, I mean, as any government, is to try and grow its economy, and every sector in the economy. So, but government needs to then start deploying the right people to the right sectors. So I think what government really needs to do is look back and say, we have been here for 50 years. We have experts in the creative space.
Almost 50, what, 50? Almost 50, 56, 57, somewhere there.
So we have experts in the space. Where are they? And they need to be deployed or redeployed to the creative spaces. And for me, I'm not saying just us, but also people at policy levels, people at accounting level, people, because a criminal lawyer or a acquisition lawyer is not the same as a creative or copyright lawyer. So where are they? I mean, I was listening to one of your
with Mr. Mogobe or with Setback.
And we're talking about 100 lawyers every year, and I'm wondering to myself, but I only know like 2 copyright lawyers. So I was like, so in growing the economy,
it's a vast industry which is unexplored.
Yes, in growing the economy, we need to prepare, and that's another thing that the government needs to do. Sometimes what happens is that great initiatives are come up with, but unfortunately the ground is not ready. It's like throwing seeds on ground that's not cultivated.
Not cultivated, sometimes no manure.
So so I mean, we need to go back to where you be and say, why are you graduating 100 criminal lawyers when we have the space that's
it's not criminal, it's just 100 lawyers.
I'm just saying, I'm just giving an example. Or why you graduating 20 tax lawyers when we need
the way it works is that you graduate them and it's up to them where they want to find a niche. They should really decide themselves where they want to specialize.
But I mean, with that decision, the ground needs to be ready for that, because I mean, we need to also understand that the industry and as the government encourage most of the decisions that are being made by these graduates. So if there's no space for that, for example, it's like asking someone to decide without options.
I understand. Okay. I want to ask you the Zaka questions, because youngsters say to me, Mr. Mogobe, ask them if there's Zaka and what can we do to get the Zaka, because unemployment, where is the Zaka and how does one position themselves for the Zaka in this industry?
First of all, the industry is based on how things appear, how things look. You need to be out there in this industry. You need to be out there. You need to be doing good work, first of all. But I mean, it's like any business. I keep on saying the industry, the creative space is like any business. You need to start. You need to put systems in place for you to actually make the Zaka. You can't go sing today and tomorrow you're sleeping and you think you come.
You have to be consistent.
You have to be consistent. You're running. It's a business. Whether it's personal branding, whether it's an artist. I'm an artist and I'm managing myself as an artist. I'm still a business. I need to be credible. I need to be have my accounts in order. I need to, because the next thing is that I'm gonna come to Mr. Mogobe and say, look, I want to travel to America and do this as an investor. And if he says, let me see what you've been doing, and I don't have the systems in place to do that, I'll definitely not get the Zaka. So the Zaka is here. The creative space is like any other business, whether in construction, whether in transport, whether you're in, you have to do the same thing. You have to do the marketing, you have to do the crowd calling, you have to do the advertising, you have to do the pitching, you have to, it's the same, and at the end of the day, you have to deliver the product. So it's the same as any business. I think it depends on how much you put in. That's how much you'll get out. Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, so you have to be out there. Social media is part of it. So what is the social media strategy for Amble Side or Amble Promotions?
So our strategy is simple. We always put up the work we've done. We always put up what
on
we can
all
do.
the platforms.
On all the platforms. So on Facebook, on Instagram, and we're currently learning TikTok, but we'll get there. Yeah,
I'm in TikTok too.
Yeah, yes. So inevitably you have to adapt. Social media is a must nowadays for it. Not even for business, even government, parastatals, anyone who's looking to make any sort of impact.
Posts almost daily.
Yes.
Yeah.
So our strategy is to show what we have done. Is to show our capability. So that's our strategy. Our strategy is it's not more of posting every day, but more of showing the impactful things we have done over our lifespan.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how we.
You're talking about the big events that you've organized, for instance.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Now, the biggest setback. I mean, there's not a person in this world who's had an impact in business without a setback. Yeah. What is your almost Achilles heel? Because it didn't kill you. And what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yes. I think our biggest setback, which has constantly creeps up once in a while, is cash flow management. Because of the kind of industry we're in, especially when you're doing your own productions, they're very cash intensive. So you find out that because you're doing your own productions, you have invested a lot of your own business money into a certain project, which it's going to yield returns after a longer time. And in between that, you will have cash flow problems. And cash flow problems have almost ruined companies like ours. Yeah, and also you have your delay of payments and stuff like that comes in. So I think any businesses, and also I'm speaking in other businesses that I'm in also,
yes.
Cash
because
flow
you're beyond Amble Side, you're also in?
So I also run a consultancy called Royal Portrayal.
Royal
Portrayal also, yes. And I also have
what does it do, this consultant?
So we consult on different, especially business management, business improvement. So that's what we do. So most of the artist management we do it on that kind of plane. Yeah. So I also have we have small property portfolio, just a small little one that we're trying to grow. But I'm saying
comprising of
so right now we're just at the level we're just buying lands and keeping it and selling and turning over.
Land banking and selling.
Yes. Or trying to move into development, but again, like I was saying, the cash flow thing is it's not easy. It's not easy. But yeah, I think that's the biggest problem. I think I can safely say we're not the only ones in this country who have that problem. And I think it's the way our economy is just structured in terms of just money flowing around.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with that, how important is the trait of grit or resilience, or shall we call it persistence?
I think it's everything. It's everything. If you... There are days where it's tough to get up in the morning because you don't even know how you're going to walk into the offices and how you're going to do this next project. But I mean, determination, like I say, great resilience. You have to be able to wake up and say, okay, yesterday the strategy didn't work. I need to apply another one. Yeah, that one doesn't work. Maybe let me go back to that one I did yesterday.
I find that is the most important ingredient, grit.
Yeah.
More than all the others combined. as we come to the end of our conversation, how do you see yourself in 10, 15 years? Both yourself personally and the brand.
I'll start with the brand. In 10, 15 years, I would like to see Amble Promotion having a footstep across Africa and internationally. I see it maybe like 1 or 2 offices internationally, but for me, the money is in Africa. If I could have a footprint across
Why do you
African
believe
continent. That? Africa has got the most unique economies and unique people and unique things that I've ever seen, and there's still so much space for development. Sometimes you just need to go on the internet and just type greatest inventions in Africa this week, and you'll be amazed about the things that people come up with in all industries. And I think Africa is not yet tapped yet, and I feel that I'll be comfortable with this Africa for the next 50, maybe to 100 years, because I think the money that's available in this continent is endless if we just tap right into it.
Is it?
Yeah. So 10, 15 years, I would like Amble Promotions to have a footprint across the continent. As I'm saying, internationally, yes, maybe 1 or 2 offices, but yeah. But I think this year is the gold mine that is going to transform this world.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a very optimistic message.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, time to ask me a question if you have one.
Okay. Interesting, and we've been talking a lot about, I think we've been diving a lot in how the economy runs in terms of private sector, business, government, and I think that's where our company has been stating a lot. So I want to ask you, if you were to be given the chance tomorrow morning to say, Mr. Mogobe, we need you to transform this economy and diversify it from diamonds to anything in the next 5 years, and you're gonna do it. You're gonna be the head, and you're answering to no one. What industry do you move in, and how would you move?
Yeah. I think my first starting point would be take away all the permanent secretaries, because those are account officers in government, and subject them to training along the lines of the Stanford Seed program, along the lines of the Gordon School of Business programs, which are intensive, and they intended to just work on that mindset shift, because we have brilliant people with brilliant skills, but their thinking models are too bureaucratic, they're too backward, and they have not adapted with the times. So I think that in a space of 6 months, with intense training, such as the Stanford Seed program for the key people in government, that would be a starting point. And then maybe we would then see whether we could do the same for deputy permanent secretaries as well. But key decision makers who have to implement whatever it is coming from government, because or from parliament, because the ideas are there, the laws are there, they are brilliant, but with greatest stumbling block is execution. And part of that stumbling block results from the lack of awareness in the thinking, because somebody would come there with a big PhD, they've written books, but they are not practical in outlook, and they are not result oriented in their thinking, and they are not sufficiently time conscious. Some of the things which go through these specialized trainings, to me, it would take 6 months, intense training to get the mindset shift that is necessary. And then maybe, as my good friend Wabwana Kangwanyana has suggested, have somebody like Professor Seligman, who has been instrumental in implementing shifts and educating people in far-flung places as Australia and so on, and trying to inculcate that sense of, I don't even want to call it emotional intelligence, but something that goes beyond academic intelligence. So I think it's a mixture of emotional intelligence and social intelligence. And then inculcate that, and perhaps have a series of sessions with key implementers, all the permanent secretaries. And then when you've done that, perhaps we because HE had a brilliant idea in having a implementation ombudsman or an implementation czar
who I believe is Rep Boys Sebetela. But if I were to guess, he might be meeting these same stumbling blocks himself, or he may not be sufficiently trained himself to effect that sudden, powerful, effective change that we need, that we really need, so that I think that to me that would be the starting point. Yeah. Of course, there are a lot of areas to benchmark, but beyond just going to fancy cities like Dubai or wherever to benchmark there, I think there's more a need to have some of those people to work with these PSs once they've done that sort of intensive training. So without that intensive training, in my view, we're going to just be crying like this endlessly. We're not just going in circles, but we're going in figure 8. 8 goes like, it's even more frustrating, like in circles, but it's 2 circles going there. I feel that in a lot of ways, we're just, things are so bad that when you go to a government office or to see a government minister, for them to unravel a problem you are encountering, when they have the full capacity to address that problem, to confront it, they themselves complain about the government. Yeah. So half of your conversation is about them saying how frustrated they are. Yeah. And yet they have the full capacity to solve the problem. Yeah. I've had that happen to me quite a couple of times. I'm sure it has happened to you. Yep. They end up complaining about government more than you are complaining. Yes. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. And just on the last element, which industry would you go into? Which industries or sectors would you go into first?
Well, we have the Ministry of Entrepreneurship. And they've only been around for about a year or less than a year, so we haven't had time. Yeah. So that would be one area, and then of course trade and industry, and then agriculture, and all of them. Professor Seligman and my friend Wabona Kaimanyana would probably argue that you may need to set up, as has happened in Dubai and other places, even a Ministry of Happiness, or even not a dedicated ministry, somebody responsible for happiness, because people will not produce if they're not happy. And happiness is not about money. Happiness is not about fancy offices. It's much deeper that we need to work on. So those are the basics in terms of my thoughts. If I was in a leadership position to work on. There are many others which maybe come across as controversial, which we can't discuss here. Yeah, maybe you'll have to invite me for tea.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, that's great. And it's interesting that you're mentioning Ministry of Happiness. And as I was saying, I think I mentioned earlier that the space that we are in has an ability to just heal people. Sometimes you can just hear music and just heal.
Just calm down. Me, I go to the bush. Yeah. Or I spend time in my garden. There's just so much healing around. Or you spend a day with Banamba Holoko Kokotle. Because I'm a headman in Kanye. Just spending a day with those guys. The healing effect.
Yeah. And I think that's something also we just need to look at also as Botswana. Just let's heal. Let's come. Yeah.
The culture is there. The culture is there. A lot of things are right, but we need to just work on those areas. Okay. Now face that camera, sir, and leave the viewer with a few uplifting and motivational words as we wrap up.
Okay. For me, it's simple. I think what we just need to do first is that have an understanding of ourselves. A big thing, and if you're a business person, if you're an entrepreneur, is that you need to understand yourself. You need to have an acceptance of yourself, accept your situation, and only from there can you move forward. We have so much potential in our country. We have so much potential in our continent. I think we need to just look out for those great collaborations. We need to look out for those great opportunities. Always be ready. Always wake up in the morning. And if things are tough, don't even hesitate to pick up the phone. Call anyone. I've developed this thing of that you can call any single person. And no matter how long it takes, eventually you'll get through to them. And that is it for me. Just keep pushing and keep working hard.
Share all your contacts, even on social media, please.
So social media, it's Amble Promotions. That's both on Instagram and on IG, Instagram and Facebook. We've also got a line 75715163. That one you can hit up on WhatsApp. and we can chat. I think from there we can communicate. You can see email address. My email address is rapinyanak@gmail.com. rapinyanak@gmail.com. I think drop me a line if you want advice about anything, if you want probably context about something you're doing in the creative space. Let me know. I'm always willing to help when I have the time. I'll always respond.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Rapinyana.
Yes,
You did
sir.
a good job.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.